Hello, this is the video for Chapter 5, Lesson 4. It's titled Compound Inequalities. So, what is a compound inequality? A compound inequality is an inequality that consists of two distinct inequalities joined by the word and or the word or. The word and means the graph will overlap. Inequalities involving and can be written as a single inequality. So an example might be x is greater than 3, x is less than 5. If we were to graph this, we would have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And when I graph this, x could be greater than 3, so it would be going this way. Or x could be less than 5. 5 is right here. It would be going the opposite direction. So in that case, where they overlap is between 3 and 5. So we would shade this in. What they have in common is that x could be between 3 and 5. Those are the possibilities for the value of x. Okay, let's look at another one. X is greater than -1. -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. So x is greater than -1. Anything greater going to the right. Or x is less than 2. So here's 2. Anything towards the left is less than 2. Therefore, where they overlap would be between -1 and 2. And the value for x is anything in between. Okay, the word or means the graph will not overlap. So it's either or. Inequalities involving or cannot be written as a single inequality. So looking at this, they will not have anything in common. X is less than 3 or x is greater than 5. So 3 is here, x is less than, going to the left. 5 is here, x is greater than, going to the right. So they have nothing in common. Meaning any value that's less than 3 or any value that's greater than 5 could be the value of x. What cannot be the value of x is anything between 3 and 5. Okay, looking at the next one. X is less than or equal to -1. I don't know what I'm doing here. This is -2. -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so we're going to bubble in our circle because it's a less than or equal to, meaning it includes -1. So close it in. Less than going to the left, and x is greater than 2. Keep it open. We're going to the right. So x, the value of x can include -1 or anything less than, or anything greater than 2. So it cannot be an answer for x would be anything between -1 and 2, not including 2. So how would we write a compound inequality if we were given a phrase? So let's read this. All numbers that are greater than or equal, keywords here, to -4 and less than 6. So the value of x, let's separate these little statements here, would have to be greater than or equal to -4 and x would have to be less than 6. So 6 is the greatest value x could be. Meaning, if I were to bring this together, I could write it where x is in the middle. And usually I'm going to put my smaller number on the left side, bigger number on the right side. Then I'm going to think through, okay, that means 4x is greater than or equal to. So -4 is less than or equal to x. And then 6 is greater than x. So x has to be less than 6. So you can kind of write these separately and then think through how you write them as a combined statement. Then let's graph. -4 is here. 6 is here. X, we're going to include -4 in our bubble because it's less than or equal to. And then it's shading greater than because it has to be x is greater than or equal to 4, and then less than 6, but it's not bubbled in because it does not include 6. And basically everything in between counts as a possibility for x. Okay, all real numbers that are less than or equal to -2. So x is going to be less than or equal to -2. Greater than, or, sorry, here's the word or, greater than 6. So x would be greater than 6. So putting this as a number sentence, we would have to use the word or so that we're not writing it as one single inequality, because with the word or, we have to look at them as separate statements. And so we would literally just rewrite what we wrote on the side. X is less than or equal to -2, or x is greater than 6. And this would be your answer as a statement. Then -2 is here, 6 is here. X, let's include that -2, bubble it in, is less than or equal to. So we're going to shade to the left, greater than, bubble open, shade to the right. What's the difference between x is between -5 and 7 and x is between -5 and 7 inclusive? Okay. So what is the difference here? So this word inclusive means it includes -5 and 7, whereas x being between -5 and 7 is open. It's not including -5 and 7. So the difference here is that one has an open bubble, and it would be in between. And then the other one would be a closed bubble, including -7 and, or not -7, +7, 7 and -5. So in this case, with the open bubbles, x, the value of x is anything shaded in between. It does not include, so let's write this, does not include -5 and 7. Whereas in the other case, this means it can be anything in between -5 and 7, but it also includes -5 and 7. Those are potential solutions for x. All right, how do we solve an inequality involving and? What do we do? So when we have a statement like this, how can we solve for the value of y? All you're going to do is write it as two separate inequalities and solve two equations for y. We're going to write this as -1 is less than 3y minus 4. And then we're going to write this as 3y minus 4 is less than 14. And we're going to combine these statements using and, because in the end, when we're done, we're going to bring them back together. So we have to separate them out in order to solve for y. Then we're going to bring them back together. So we're going to solve it as a regular inequality. Add 4 on both sides. So this would be 3 is less than 3y. divide by 3, and this would be 1 is less than y. Over here, I'm going to add 14 on both sides, or sorry, add 4 on both sides, and I would get 3y is less than 18, divide by 3 on both sides, y is less than 6. All right, so to bring them together, let me use a different color so we can see the final answer. It should be 1 is less than y, and y is less than 6. So you can bring it all together, and the value for y is going to have to be between 1 and 6. So here's 1, here's 6, open bubbles for 1 and 6, and it's going to be in between 1 and 6. So the value for y can be anything between 1 and 6, meaning if you pick a number like 2 or 4 or 5 or anything in between, or 2.5, 3.5, 3.75, anything in between, and you replace that with y, replace y with that number, you will have a true number sentence. Problem 3. Let's read this. Suppose you scored 78, 78, and 79 on the first 3 tests and have one more test to take. Is it possible for you to earn a B in this course? So a B is between 84 and 86. Assume that 100 is the maximum grade you can earn in the course and on the test. Explain. So what are we going to do here? We're basically figuring out for your 4th test. Let's say we find the average. To find your grade, right, is basically to find an average. So you have 4 test grades. We're going to divide it all by 4. We want to figure out what this x value is going to be. Can it be, can it produce an average where it is your grade average is between 84 and 86, meaning this is going to be greater than 84 and yeah, your value would have to be or that 86, sorry, 86 would be the greatest value that you could have. So you're trying to figure out, can you earn a B? And this is the grade, the bracket, basically. The definition of a B is between an 84 and an 86. So you're thinking, can this test average with the 4th test result in a grade that's between 84 and 86? Now, 84 counts as a potential score. 86 counts as a potential score because if you get an 84, it's still a B. If you get an 86, it's still a B. So this is basically how we're going to set up this equation, because you've got potential values for x. It's not just one grade that's going to give you a B. You could have multiple different grades potentially that gives you a B. So I'm going to simplify. 78 plus 78 plus 79 is 234 plus x divided by 4. And then I'm going to have to separate this out into 2 equations. So I've got one here and one here, where I'm going to have to solve for x. So over here, same equation, solving in relation to 86. So multiply by 4 on both sides. 84 times 4 is 336. Subtract 234 on both sides. I'm running out of room. But bringing this over, x would be, let me write it back in the correct order. 336 minus 234 is 102. So you would have to score greater than 102 to get 84. Over here, multiply by 4 on both sides. 234 plus x is less than or equal to. Plug it in. 36 times 4. 344. Subtract 234. And that's 110. Okay, so that means 110. So that means I'm going to write it over here so I'm not running out of room. The value of your fourth test score has to be greater than 102%, and it would be less than 110% in order for you to get between an 84 and 86. Now, looking at this, is it possible for you to get a B if you earn these C pluses on all 3 tests and then you have 1/4 test that you're taking? No, you're not going to be able to earn that B because you can't score higher than 100. And you would have to score a minimum of 102 points in order to get an 84%. So you can maybe keep your grade up as like a high C, but I don't think you're going to be able to get that B here. And so to explain, I'm not going to write it all down, but you can write this down. When you explain, you would say, no, because you would need at least a 102 on the test to get an 84%. All right, last problem. What are the solutions for the word or? Okay, all you're going to do is write them as 2 separate equations or inequalities, I guess. And then you're going to graph it. So because they're not combined, you have to look at them as separate inequalities. And they're not going to have an overlap. So I'm going to subtract 7 on both sides. Negative 2y, this would be negative 6. Divide by negative 2. What happens when you divide by a negative 2? You flip the inequality, so don't forget to do that. You're going to flip it, and this becomes positive 3. Y is greater than 3. Over here, subtract 3. 4y is less than negative 8. Divide by 4 on both sides. I'm not dividing by negative, so inequality stays the same. This is going to be negative 2. Y is less than negative 2. Now let's graph it. Negative 2 is over here because it's smaller. 3 is over here. They're both going to be open bubbles because there's no equal involved with the inequality. Then y is greater than 3. It's going to go to the right. Y is less than negative 2. It's going to go to the left. And that's it. That's your graph. And that's your final answer. You can just say y is greater than 3 or y is less than negative 2. As simple as that. That's all I have for you today. I'll see you next time.